Welcome back to another episode of the Point of Attack show here on the TWSN YouTube channel. My name is Thomas Stapleton. I'm joined as always by my co-host, Pranav Sriraman. Pranav, how you doing tonight, man?
Fantastic as always.
Yeah, that's great to hear. We got an NBA topic today. The NBA All-Star starters just came out today. In the Eastern Conference, we are looking at Kyrie Irving, Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. And in the West, we're looking at Steph, Luka Doncic, LeBron James, Zion Williamson, and Nikola Jokic. Let's start off in the East. I think it's let's start off in the front court because I feel like there were kind of four guys to choose from there. Four guys that have been playing at the top of the MVP race pretty much all season. And unfortunately, Joel Embiid was the one to get cut out. Do you think Joel Embiid was the rightful cut here, or do you think he should have made it in over one of them?
Absolutely not. Joel Embiid absolutely should have made the starting lineup for the NBA All-Star game this year. I think there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He is the most efficient 30-point scorer in the league, and he is, like, when you're considering his volume and efficiency, he has been arguably the best scorer in basketball this season. And when you factor in his load as well, and when you factor in how much better the 76ers offense is with him, how much better the defense is with him as well. I mean, he's playing once again at an MVP caliber level. Obviously, he might not win it this year, but that's the level he's playing at for just another year in a row. And I would have personally given him the nod over Giannis Antetokounmpo. You could have your debates about whether or not Giannis is the better player or not. I'm probably going to agree with you there. But in regards to just this season, Joel Embiid has undoubtedly been better than Giannis Antetokounmpo. I mean, he's been better as a scorer. Just overall offense, Embiid has provided more value this year. And I think that in its totality has just meant more than what Giannis has provided overall this year. I mean, you can argue that Giannis hasn't even been the best defender on his own team this year, and Giannis also has much more defensive help as well. And given the fact that, their offense, I believe Embiid has been pretty easily better than Giannis on offense. And given the fact that also they've played about the same amount of games as well, like the games played argument isn't really there as it has been in years past against Embiid. I would have definitely given him the spot. He has been just as good, if not better, than pretty much everyone in the league so far through the first half of the year.
Yeah, I think we agree here. I think Joel definitely should have made it. Your point about Giannis not even being the best defender on his own team is absolutely true because I believe NBA.com released and now NBA.com doesn't truly matter, but I think they did get it right. So in that case, it does matter. Brook Lopez was in the top three. And I think we can both agree that Brook Lopez absolutely deserves to be in the Defensive Player of the Year race and has been the best defensive player on this Milwaukee Bucks team. And like you said, Giannis has a lot more help on the defensive end, and this has been one of his worst scoring seasons to date in a little bit. Now, granted, he's still averaging 31 points per game on above average efficiency, but just his scoring from three, from the free throw line, from basically anywhere not in the restricted area has been really, really bad this season. And I think in a race, in like kind of a debate that is like so close because these guys are both playing at such a high level, all these like little things we have to nitpick. We have to be able to nitpick and look at all these small little details and kind of try to figure out, okay, which one of these guys has less flaws in their case. And I think with Giannis's kind of regression as a half-court scorer this year, and I don't want to say regression on the defensive end, but he just hasn't been as dominant on the defensive end in years past, and has much more help on that end than Joel Embiid. And despite this, the 76ers are still they have a better record than the Bucks. Mm-hmm. Despite all this, Joel's only played 2 less games than Giannis. So like you said, games played isn't really an argument. I don't know. I would have put Embiid at that starting 5. I'm not like super mad at it, but
it's also hard because Giannis got voted by the fans as the captain. But just like we're speaking in the sense that we get to choose and like we're making the correct decision here.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, Kevin Durant should have been the captain. I mean, I think he's been the best player in the East so far this season. Kyrie Irving, I think some people. I was actually pretty surprised to see him kind of get the starting nod, because I know media votes on this a lot, and I'm not sure how many of the players are like huge fans of him. So I was
Yeah.
kind of surprised to see him up there. But do you think he deserves to be there?
So, to answer your first question, the players actually had Kyrie as their number one choice with
Wow.
128 player total votes going to him. He finished first there. He also finished first among fan voting, and the media is where he finished fourth behind Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brown, and Tyrese Halliburton. Actually, got the third media rank over Kyrie. So, it's actually the media is a part I predicted, but I did not expect him after, everything that went down earlier this season to finish first in fan voting. But I mean, his influence, he has a pretty big fan base. So maybe I shouldn't have been as surprised as I was. Um, but to answer your question, I mean, I think they got the backcourt right in the Eastern Conference. I believe that Kyrie Irving and Donovan Mitchell have been the two best guards in the Eastern Conference this season. Maybe you can make the case for James Harden. I can really understand the case for James Harden. I believe he's become one of the more underrated players in the league. I mean, just because he's not Houston James Harden anymore, and particularly as a scorer, but 22 points, 11 assists on over 36% shooting from three. I mean, those are the numbers that people are raving about for Tyrese Halliburton, but for some reason, Harden, he's held to such a high all-time standard that he set for himself that anything below that, people think that he is so much worse than he actually is, which is not true. So, um, I don't really have any qualms with how the voting turned out and how the starting lineup turned out in amongst the backcourt in the Eastern Conference, but I do understand the argument for work James Harden over Kyrie Irving. It's a very respectable one, but I think Donovan Mitchell is undoubtedly the best guard in the Eastern Conference, and so I think they got that right.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Donovan Mitchell. The James Harden Tyrese Halliburton comparison kind of feels like one of those flirting versus harassment
Yeah,
templates on Twitter, where you compare their stats and everyone's raving about how great Halliburton's been this
yeah,
season, but James Harden, it's he's a disappointment. He's washed. But I would have given James Harden the spot here. I think his playmaking has been absolutely off the charts this season. And he's also had to play a lot of games where, not a lot, but like a good amount of games where Joel wasn't there. Like there was never really like a time where um like Joel, the chunk of games that Joel was missing didn't totally line up with the chunk of games that James Harden was missing, and Tyrese Maxey was out. So there were a lot of games where James Harden had to really shoulder an offensive load with Maxey being out for half the season, and Embiid missing a stretch of games. So I personally would give it to him. I get it.
and Harden's better as a number one option than Kyrie too, so I probably would agree.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Harden's
Better
been
number
better
two.
as a number two option.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I think his playmaking. I mean, there is a scoring gap, but Harden's also been one of the most efficient scorers in the league. I mean, 22 points per game, 39% from three, 61 true shooting. Hard to argue with that. Well, along with other stuff he brings as a playmaker, I would have given it to him, but I'm not like super upset about it. And now we can move on to the West. I think maybe a little more controversy here. We have Luka Doncic and Steph Curry in the backcourt, and then in the front court we have LeBron James, Zion Williamson, and Nikola Jokic. I'll start off with this one. I love Zion, and Zion's been having a spectacular season, but he's only played 29 games or something like that, and I'm not totally sure that like he was so much better than all the guys in front of him to warrant that starting spot. He's been very, very, very good this year, and I'm such a huge fan of his. But I don't know if he's been like so much better than Lowry that the games gap didn't really matter. And you could make that same argument for James Harden, but the because he's only played 31 games, but the gap between him and Kyrie is only like 4 games. And I think James Harden's been better this season. But then I look at the guys that are probably going to be selected that are on the bench in the Western Conference. I look at someone like Lauri Markkanen, who has been having an unbelievable season and has played 46 games. That's like
He's been
17, like almost
he's
a
been
third of the
better.
season more, like almost a third of the season more than Zion Williamson has been playing at an unbelievably high level. and has really, like, this Utah team is still hanging around. They're just about 500 when I personally thought they were going to be at the bottom of the Western Conference standings. I would have given him a look. I would have given Sabonis a look for how he's really been able to help transform the Kings offense. I don't know. I think those two have had really high level seasons, and Zion has also had an extremely high level season. But when you factor the games in, I don't know.
Yeah, if Zion played as many games as Lauri Markkanen, I would have been very open arms in terms of giving him the All-Star starting nod. He's
Okay.
the better player. But the fact is, Lauri has played 17 more games. He has been incredibly, absurdly efficient as a scorer and just an overall offensive weapon. And then, I mean, you speak about the Jazz success this year, and it's primarily predicated around him running that offense, and they are absolutely shattering expectations. They're still hanging around. And so, yeah, if Zion was healthy, I would have given it to him if he played more. But given the fact that he's not, I just don't see how you can't give it to Laurie. And a more unpopular opinion would be he is the captain. He was always going to be the captain, LeBron James, who is the greatest player of all time. But did he really deserve that starting spot this year over a guy like Domantas Sabonis? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. I personally, I said it a couple months ago, I would have taken Sabonis as that all-star starter. Just for the fact that, I mean, the Kings, he's anchoring a more efficient offense. I think Sabonis has been the best player on the Kings this year, with all due respect to De'Aaron Fox. They're running a neck and neck race. It's really been the two of them. But with that being said, Sabonis has been just absolutely unbelievable for that Kings offense, and he's not been bad at all defensively either. I mean, they're much better defensively than what I thought they would be. And I mean, the Kings are much better than the Lakers, and a lot of that has to do with Sabonis' impact. And I would have given it to him. I think he was having a similar to better season. But I'm not going to fight you if you picked LeBron. I perfectly understand that. But the backcourt, let's get to the backcourt, because I think we both agree Steph Curry and Luka Doncic are the two best guards, not only in the Western Conference but the entire NBA. But Steph Curry played 33 games, while Shai Gilgeous-Alexander played 44 games. The Thunder are only one game behind the Warriors in the standings, and they've been much better as of recently than the Golden State Warriors. Their advanced analytics are better than the Golden State Warriors. Shai is the second most efficient 30-point scorer in the NBA this season, right behind Joel Embiid. So that begs the question. I'm not arguing that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is better than Steph Curry. That is not what I'm doing here. What I'm saying is, for the sake of the All-Star game, when you're valuing how much a team has accomplished in regards to not only expectations, but relative to their peers, and the Warriors and the Thunder, I mean, the Thunder relative to expectations and relative to the Warriors are absolutely blowing them out in terms of achievement. And then when you factor in the games played combined with the level of play, I would give that second backcourt spot next to Luka Doncic. I would give it to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander over Steph Curry. Just for the simple fact that he's played more games, and the Thunder have been just as good, if not better, than the Golden State Warriors throughout the season.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's pretty much a no-brainer. I mean, I with the game gap being as big as it is, and look at the talent difference on the roster. Now, I get it that Steph has missed a lot of time, but even with Steph on the court, they still haven't been like amazing. This is a team that just won the NBA Finals and are now treading at around 500. And as you said, they are a game in front of the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are at a significant talent disadvantage. Their coaching's worse, their defense is worse, their offense is like they should not be anywhere near close to the Golden State Warriors when you're looking at the talent on paper. But a lot of the credit for why the Thunder is so successful, and they have a lot of great pieces on this team, but a lot of the reason why they are so successful is driven around Shai, his ability to get downhill, his ability to create offense for this team at an unprecedented level. As you said, he's the second most efficient 30-point per game scorer in the entire NBA. They've been better as of recently. In fact, there is a legitimate chance that the Thunder have a better record than the Golden State Warriors by the time this game even rolls around. That's the simple fact. And for me, it would have been a no-brainer. I look at the games played, I look at the record, I look at the numbers, I say, okay, not a huge difference in the numbers and in terms of how they've been playing this season. Massive difference in who they're playing with. And you look at the games and it's like, oh, the Warriors are 24-24, the Thunder are 23-25. All right, it's easy. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered it best. I mean, he should be starting. I mean, with all due respect to Steph Curry, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander should be starting in the All-Star game. But I want to talk about, before we get out of here, I want to talk about a couple surprising results in the ballot. So Domantas Sabonis finished ninth in the fan voting at less than 1 million votes. However, guess where he finished among the media vote and among the player vote?
Are they the same? Like the same?
In amongst the media, he finished only behind Nikola Jokic and LeBron James. He had the third most media votes at 46, ahead of Zion Williamson,
Fourth in
and
player votes? That was
he
my
was
guess.
fifth. He was fifth in player votes,
Fifth in player
right
votes.
behind Jokic, LeBron, Zion, and Laurie.
Wow. I've
Yeah,
that doesn't shock me necessarily that media and players are higher on Sabonis than I think the
yep,
general consensus is, because
they know.
Sabonis like isn't flashy. He's kind of like, an older school player. I think you have to watch, like, and this is gonna sound like a diss, but it's not. I think you have to watch a lot of basketball to really understand. Well, a lot of Kings basketball to really understand how important Sabonis is to the Kings and how good he
He's a
is.
nightmare for defenses. Like he
Total nightmare.
Like, I was by the way, the Thunder versus Kings game the other night, total nerd take, but I mean, best game of the season in my humble opinion. But I mean, he could not miss from within the restricted area. I mean, anywhere from like 10 feet, that guy is automatic as a scorer. And he doesn't even have that high volume scoring volume because his team is better off with him being in that primary facilitating role. And he is the second best passing big in the league. I think you can make a very strong argument. I
Yep.
would say third, right behind Jokic and Draymond. But I mean, the second best playmaking big, I would say it's easily Domantas Sabonis. I mean, he is a nightmare for defenses to prepare for, just because he's so good at exploiting holes. And I mean, you factor in what he's done. I mean, it's not surprising, like you said, the fact that he is so high in the player vote and the media vote, but he's comparatively low among the fan vote. Yeah, and
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Did I cut you
no,
off?
no, go ahead. Yeah,
Yeah, and Sabonis just does all the little things too that I think go underappreciated. Like, he's one of the best screen setters in all of basketball, and I know that doesn't sound like much, but especially for the Kings offense in specifically, it does so much for them with dribble handoffs, freeing up shooters, being a
that screen
DHO
game is one of the
cover.
best in the league. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Running a two-man game with De'Aaron Fox, being able to hit backdoor cutters. He's leading the league in rebounds. Like, he does a lot of the little things that I think NBA fans who love the game but don't always watch the Kings will totally understand. But he does so many good things on the court. He's putting up unbelievable numbers in the process. I mean, I'm curious how many guys in the league are averaging like over 18 points, 7 assists, and 10 boards. I imagine it's going to be like Luka, Jokic, um, that might be it. Giannis maybe somewhat close. Like, there aren't a lot of guys who are doing what Sabonis is doing, and the guys that are no-brainer superstars and top 10 players. And now I'm not saying Sabonis is totally there, but I think that there is an appreciation for Sabonis amongst media and players, especially players who have to game plan for him each and every single night and get to play against him in real time. I think there is a sense of appreciation for how good he really is.
yeah. And another thing I wanted to talk about was Giannis having significantly more media vote. Well, I wouldn't say significantly, but him having considerably more media votes than Kevin Durant, who actually finished fourth in the media voting. I thought that was a bit surprising, but if you want to know what I think was the most surprising out of any vote, and very telling amongst any vote, was the fact that Trae Young, I'm going to repeat, Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks amongst Eastern Conference guards in the player vote finished 12th. Here are some of the names he finished behind: Kyrie Irving, Donovan Mitchell, Jaylen Brown, DeMar DeRozan, James Harden, Tyrese Halliburton, LaMelo Ball, Darius Garland, Jalen Brunson, Zach LaVine, Drew Holiday, and he finished with the exact same vote total as Tyler Hero from the Miami Heat. Thomas, you want to wrap up any thoughts on the Trae Young voting and what that indicates to you?
It's embarrassing, and I know the media vote is gonna skew a lot of this because for whatever reason the media has hated Trae Young for years, um, and I the players don't like him either. So I understand why it happened. Like I can make sense of it, but it still doesn't. The concept of it doesn't make any sense to me. If Trae Young was shooting 34% from three, 35% from three, which is like below average in terms of regular efficiency, but above average considering the volume and difficulty of threes he takes, he would be no brainer the best guard in the Eastern Conference. I think it would be a no brainer, and I think because this shooting slump is really really killing him, he's not his efficiency hasn't been up to par. His points per game would be higher at probably closer to like 30. And now we're talking about like a 30 and 10 guy. Like people are really love Tyrese Halliburton because he's averaging like 20 and 10 right now. Trae Young would be averaging 30 and 10. And no brainer he would be above Halliburton. I can't understand Jaylen Brown or DeMar. I mean, yes, those guys have been better as a scorer, but those guys, neither of them.
Jalen Brunson,
Yeah, Brunson, like
Tyler
Brunson,
Hero, Zach LaVine. It just hate at that point.
all of those guys are not Trae level bad on the defensive end of the floor, but I don't consider any of those guys positives on the defensive end of the floor. And I'd argue none of them are really close as scorers. I mean, Jaylen Brown's been having a really efficient scoring season, so maybe you could give it to him. But then when you include the playmaking gap, it's like, what are we doing?
Right.
So I understand it, but I don't understand it. I understand how it happened, but I don't understand why it happens. Why everyone hates Trae Young, and it sounds like whining, but it's like I don't get it. I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, I get why they don't like him. It just, but like at some point, you need to be you have to be honest. Like, let's get real. You're robbing someone of potential, like, legacy, potential finance in terms of contract incentive. Like,
Mhm.
let's get real. Tyler Hero is not better than Trae Young. Jalen Brunson's not better than Trae Young, even with a down year. And even with how good Brunson's been, Zach LaVine's not better. And Terry Rozier finishing 3 votes behind Trae Young amongst the players. I mean, it just goes to show that, like, kind of like the NFL top 100 straying away from the NBA, like, players are just voting for their friends and not actually, like, taking into account, like, who the best players really are. So that vote was extremely appalling to me.
Yeah, it's yeah. I don't understand it. I mean, I don't know if I would go like all the way in on this take, but I very well, if I like did some research for it and like really went into it, like I can make a case for Trae Young as a starter, as a guard starter easily. I could have done it. Now, would it have been like the correct case per se? But I don't know. But I think I easily could have made the case that he was deserving to be a starter in the East. But hopefully, my ultimate goal is that he will make the All-Star game altogether,
Yeah.
because right now that is that's looking questionable, which is even more crazy. But that's going to wrap up today's episode of The Point of Attack. Thank you guys so much for tuning in as always. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the TWSN YouTube channel. Stuff like this goes up every single week. Me and Pranav, we have a new topic every single week. We're super excited to bring it to you. We've got awesome content on the YouTube channel to check out. WWE, NFL, NFL draft, NBA draft, all of that good stuff you can find on here. And we will catch you guys next week. Peace out.
Go Chiefs.